Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Friday, folks. We got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about unresolved justice. The funeral of Jordan Neely is happening today, but there are still a lot of questions about how this situation around his death will be resolved. We'll be talking a little bit, giving you the latest out of New York. Also, let's talk about the IRS admitting the truth about auditing Black taxpayers higher than white taxpayers and what they should do, what they plan to do to change it. Should we expect a higher return? We'll have that conversation. Later on, I want to talk about the big culture convo, Black nonprofit organizations being funded by white philanthropists to stay afloat. Folks, I'm talking to you. Should we carry the shame of not supporting our Black-led nonprofit institutions? We have that discussion, and later we'll talk about how Princeton is doing its part to try to turn the page on its racism and actually name one of its dormitories after a Black woman and a Latino man. We'll bring you the latest details around that. So stay with us. That's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the conversation. Happy Friday, folks. Happy Friday, and I hope that you have had a good week, and I hope that you enjoyed today's discussions as we got a lot to cover. So let's jump right into it. First and foremost, let's talk about the latest that is coming out of New York with the unfortunate case of Jordan Neely. The funeral of Brother Jordan Neely is held today, and there is still a lot of questions as to what's going to happen next in his case, as we're calling this unresolved justice, folks. And I want to, get you some of the latest details around this. Reverend Al Sharpton has been the one chosen to eulogize Brother Jordan Neely, saying that a good Samaritan helps, they don't choke him out. So this is happening today, and all the while, there are still a lot of questions around Daniel Penny, the 24-year-old who has been accused of killing Neely, as putting him into a chokehold, and many people in the city of New York and around the country are wondering what will be the eventual outcome for this whole situation. Let me bring in my sister, Corinna Denise, who is an educator, college advisor, activist, and she is one of our online culture crew members. You can see her on every Friday here on The Culture. Corinna, good afternoon. How are you, sis?
Afternoon. Happy Friday, Farajii.
Let's talk about this. We have been on top of this whole situation, Corinna, and now we're at this point where they are putting to rest our brother Jordan Neely. They are laying him to rest. His funeral is today, right there in your home state of New York, in your home city of New York City. But what do you make of where we are around this case, where there are still a lot of questions about what's going to happen next?
Still so many questions, right?
Right.
I feel like we have a ways to go. They're laying him to rest today. And I think, the hardest part has yet to really start for the family, long after you've buried your loved one and you're still going through that grieving process. And then they can't even just grieve. They're going to have to face a court dispute and battle, right? So, how are they preparing themselves for that? What I will say, I did see on some of the local news here earlier today, pictures of Daniel Penny. And I find it ironic, this is just a little side note, that suddenly now he's wearing like a mask. And when he was on the train and actually killed Jordan Neely, he had on no mask. So it just makes me suspicious. I wonder if he just wants to hide his face now, being out in the public. But I think we still have so much of a ways to go. I heard some of Reverend Al's eulogy, and it's just like a lot of what he's saying is like, we've heard it before, and like, when does it actually change. So yeah, I have a lot of mixed feelings right now.
Yeah.
I do know that God forbid, Mr. Penny is exonerated. Like New York City this summer is going to be hot.
Right, right. As we talk about Reverend Al Sharpton, he said what happened to Jordan was a crime and this family shouldn't have to stand by themselves. Do you think that we do our part enough to stand next to the families that are impacted by this level of violence, whether it's police brutality or this, in this case, vigilantism? Do you feel like that this is that we do our part to make sure that that family is supported?
I think we do our part, but there's always more that we can do, right? Because a lot of us get on social media. That's usually the go to lane of communication for all of us to express our sentiments, our feelings. But there are actually things that we can do as far as like supporting the family, whether it's, financially, sentiments, cards, notes. I would imagine in hard times, it's so meaningful to read like a note from someone or, just a word of encouragement because they don't always have the time I could imagine to actually go on social media or who even wants to do that or who is even in the mindset to sort through the comments. And you never know if something's going to pop up negative. So I think that would certainly keep them going, especially in such a trying time. But we certainly can do more, whether it's supporting like your local nonprofits or organizations who also do this work, who are supporting the family, supporting them to help the family. There's always a little bit more that we can do.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I feel like the social media thing is all well and good, but I'm not sure. And this is going back to the sentiment you just shared, which I share too, Corinna. Is it's happening so much. I'm wondering, and I'm very concerned that that people will start to feel a little numb from
Yeah.
this, right? And even in the case of the funeral, I mean, of course, you got to have a funeral when someone passes away, but it becomes this other thing, right? It becomes more of a political statement. It becomes more of a cultural moment, more so than a family trying to lay their loved ones to rest.
Yeah.
And the thing is like walking away. I don't, and this is part of our experience being in America, that a funeral becomes a call to action
Mm.
instead of an opportunity for us to grieve and to mourn. You said something I think is really, really important just a few moments ago. You talking about they not only can they not grieve, but they also got to deal with the legal battles and all of that other stuff. And I mean, that is so much to put on any family, especially when your loved one has died the
Yeah.
way Jordan died, on camera, in public.
So
It
tragic.
becomes a national conversation. You get, all of this other stuff in here. And I'm like, it's hard for us to remember that at the end of the day, this brother was a black man who really struggled. You know what I'm saying? He
Mhm.
had some struggles. Of course, his mom, passed away years before. I mean, just to kind of reflect on his humanity and not just him as a
Right.
moment.
Another case, another
Another,
tragic.
right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's hard. It's hard. You know what I'm saying? And it's like when I see the funeral, I'm like,
I
people
know.
came out, and you know what I'm saying? Like it becomes this. I don't know. It is frustrating and it's sad and it's part of the space that we find ourselves in culturally. But I always try to think like this is still another family that has lost a loved one and they're going to have to grieve through it.
Yeah, and it's important too, like I said just a few minutes ago, this is just the beginning of the hard part, right? Like the days long after. And sometimes we have a short-term memory, where we're just caught up in our own lives. But I think that's how we can essentially support families more, right? By not forgetting. Like I just saw something the other day from Until Freedom, like saying Shaquella Warbiston, like we haven't forgotten. We don't want to just move on because the news cycle does. So even if it's not on the public forum, it's important for us to remember, and remembering all of the lives that were lost, right? And let that be, the motivation of what we're trying to achieve and what we're fighting for. Follow the family, stay abreast of the court case that's happening, and follow the trial. I think it's important that we continue to pay attention to the outcome and support what the potential outcome could be as well.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take some a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to play just a few moments of what Reverend Al Sharpton had to say at today's funeral of Jordan Neely. Folks, stay with us. Join us in the conversation. Of course, I want to hear from you. What do you make as we lay our brother Jordan Neely to rest? Now, the next step, of course, is the legal battle. Now, the next step is trying to bring some level of closure and justice to the Neely family. Share your thoughts with us. Just post your comments as we're streaming live on YouTube. Of course, we're streaming on blackstarnetwork.com and on Amazon News. Stay with me, folks. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the funeral of Jordan Neely, which happened today. And I'm calling this discussion Unresolved Justice because there's still a lot of questions as to what will happen next, even though the killer of Jordan Neely, Daniel Penny, 24-year-old, who has been charged with manslaughter, there's still a sense and there's still a feeling that some things are still left uncovered, that the family still has a long way to go before they find some level of closure to this situation. And I've been talking to online culture crew member Corinna Denise, who is an advisor, college advisor, activist, and educator. But I want to share with you just a little bit of what Reverend Al Sharpton had to say today at the funeral. And then conscious thought, I see you made an excellent point, brother. So I want to raise that into the discussion and hear more from what you have to say. But first, let's go to Reverend Al Sharpton at the funeral of Jordan Neely today.
We should not celebrate Jordan's life, but we should not ignore how he died. This funeral was not on the schedule. We're not here because of natural causes. We're here because of unnatural policies. Jordan was not annoying someone on the train. Jordan was screaming for help. We keep criminalizing people with mental illness. People keep criminalizing people that need help. They don't need abuse, they need help. What happened to Jordan was a crime. And this family shouldn't have to stand by themselves. I heard the governor of Florida, DeSantis, say that the man that killed Jordan was a good Samaritan. A good Samaritan helped those in trouble. They don't choke them out.
Reverend Al Sharpton speaking today. Let's go back to Corinna. Corinna, a couple of things. He talked about that this wasn't on the agenda. This wasn't on the schedule. Jordan did not die of natural causes, but because of unnatural policies. That's an interesting take on it. And of course, I think the other part of it is looking at that Jordan wasn't annoying people, but he was basically crying out for help, which in that case, yes, because he said, I need food, I need drink. He was crying out, literally, figuratively, he was crying out. But the fact that the Reverend said unnatural policies, and part of me, and this could just be me overthinking this, Corinna, you have all, please check me on this when I say this. But part of me tends to believe that that is always the thing, the go-to. And I'm wondering now, after seeing these type of moments, after watching how our death in mass as people has been conceptualized, that it puts us in a position like we're property of the state. that our lives is not because of the inhumane behavior of another individual. Our lives is because of the injustice of a system. And I'm just not sure if that is going to move the needle on changing our view of what we can change or what we have control over. I hope I'm making sense when I'm making this point. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. I think kind of looking at it as, maybe what Reverend Al was alluding to, we have a lot of folks who don't value anyone else's humanity other than their own, who are actually our legislators, who in turn create policy that affects our lives, so that people feel that they have the authority to just do these things to us. I mean, Daniel Penny went into the NYPD, they questioned him, and he went home. And he was sound and safe in his bed that night, right? We know that if that was the opposite, would a Black man have even walked off the train? Would he still have his life to even see his day in court? I strongly believe that wouldn't be the case. So I think it's about changing the legislators, right? And it always boils back down to that. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people in this world that we live in this country, who do not value the humanity of others other than their own. And they do not see us. And that's why Daniel Penny felt that he had all authority to put Jordan Neely in a chokehold and essentially kill him. I was reading a piece in The Nation, Justice correspondent Ellie Mistel. I really like to follow him when it comes to anything with law. And I would encourage the audience to read that recent article, because he really breaks down the charges that District Attorney Alvin Bragg brought to Daniel Penny and the reasoning for that. I know we talked about that last week, how we saw, we thought it should be like a first-degree murder, but why did they have to charge second-degree manslaughter? But it's essentially, how do you actually prove first degree, right? What can you actually prove to a jury? And you don't want to take a chance with, let's be honest, it's like a jury of about 12 folks, some New Yorkers. You want to assume, do they have all the facts? I mean, you want to assume the best, but I guess you actually have to prepare for the worst too. So you want to actually try and get a conviction and get a charge. But he really breaks down what that looks like and why those charges were brought against him the way that they were. But yeah, Farajii, I agree with you. I don't think it's just the policy, but we have a lot of people who are against our very humanity create these laws. And then when we sit home and we don't vote, I know it always circles back to that. We're accountable because we're essentially allowing them to win elections that they wouldn't win otherwise. And they have publicly acknowledged this. Even Donald Trump has acknowledged it, saying thank you. Thank you for not coming out to vote. Because they know without a doubt, when we collectively use our power, that's going to be it, a wrap. We
That's absolutely right.
Anything ever again. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but they don't see us. And that's why.
I agree. I totally agree. Conscious Thought brought up one of our great culture crew members. Conscious Thought, you said, bro, there is no humanity to be expected in an inhumane society. Humanity must be cultivated by those who are inherently human.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think I'm going to flip that, right? I think racism is cultivated, right? Like when you see the innocence of a child, right? But it has to be cultivated, just like we have traditions and things that we do and practices, and it was embedded in you as a child, and we cherish those traditions. They have their traditions too. You know, I remember the first time I saw, what's his name? The representative, young, I think he's like 26. He was in the wheelchair. He just got kicked out of Congress last year. I don't know his name. I can't remember at the time.
I know you're speaking up.
The first time I saw him on The View, I think when he was running for the election, and I remember seeing the flag in the background, the American flag, but it was the one with the 13 stars representing the 13 colonies. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, he's a baby, you know, like, and not like a baby, but you know, like young man, like you're under 30, you're still growing. I'm like, someone had to instill that in you, right? For you to be this way. Your children are innocent. So someone is teaching them, someone is cultivating that in them. So to conscious thought, I'm sorry, I wholeheartedly agree. And I think it's the same, like you have to cultivate being a humanitarian, being valuing people, to see them equal to yourself. But they're learning just the opposite, unfortunately, thus in humane society.
Absolutely. And I think that's the point about this. And I want to make sure, as we take another pause, I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of that as the community, as the people that Jordan came from, that we don't lose sight of his humanity, because some of us still struggle and are challenged by white supremacist thinking. Some of us are challenged by how we view each other, right? Because of the conditioning and the cultures of this white supremacist, the poison of white supremacy. So we don't look at ourselves. We don't look at ourselves as human.
I just want to add one more thing. Something else that Ellie Mistola mentions in the article, and just being a New Yorker, I thought of that. He says, no one thought to just give him like a couple of dollars, a drink, some food. Like they're painting this picture as if it's so not ordinary for someone to come on the train and ask for things, right? I've given away countless leftovers, water, change when I had it in my pocket, you know, like no one thought to do that to just de-escalate the situation. Right. So I find it very hard to believe that they just felt so threatened that he just took it upon himself to put this man in a chokehold. So why couldn't you just, that could have easily solved the problem. Everyone's on the train, a half empty Poland Spring bottle of water, maybe you got a couple of crackers, some fruit, whatever you have, and you could have just offered it and said, this is what I have, you're welcome to have it, you know, whatever. Maybe that would have calmed him down. And I personally don't believe, you know, any of the story where they felt so threatened that this had to happen. I don't believe that.
Absolutely. The other part that Tina Jackson, you brought this up, and I don't think we aren't really talking about this one, Corinna. She said, will charges be brought upon the two men that assisted in his murder? They held him down. They didn't even attempt to help. They assisted in his murder.
They definitely did, aiding and abetting.
First and foremost, if somebody is choking, the last thing you want to do is hold their arms down and you know, try to, because that puts them, they can't move, they can't adjust their body. They're pretty much mobilized. So I haven't heard about the two other folks that were responsible in this situation. Even if they might not be charged with second-degree manslaughter, they're still held. They should still be held responsible. And Tina, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I agree, sis. And I hope that that's something Alvin Bragg is looking into, right? You know, as far as witnesses. And yeah, you do see in the video footage that Daniel Penny has some assistance. So where is accountability in this?
Absolutely. Folks, our hearts and prayers and condolences go out to the family of Jordan Neely at this time. But more importantly, we're going to do our part here on Black Star Network on the culture to continue the conversations, to hope that will bring some level of closure and justice to the family. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about the IRS and them admitting that they have been auditing Black taxpayers at a higher rate than any other group of people in America. What happens next is the big question. Folks, stay with us. That discussion is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's just switch gears a little bit and talk about what's been happening with Black folks financially in this country. As we know, tax season was upon us just a few weeks ago. And now there is some new information, a new study that has shown folks that the IRS has been auditing Black taxpayers at a higher rate than white taxpayers. This is the new study has come out earlier this week. And the IRS has put out a statement to confirm that that has been the case. Now, take a look at this, folks. I want to, Keenan, let's put the first quote up, bro. Thank you, sir. This acknowledgement came after the publication of research this year showing that Black taxpayers was disproportionately audited, prompting calls from members of Congress for a review into the methodology and algorithms that help determine who is selected. Now, according to the IRS commissioner, Mr. Daniel Werfel, he said, quote, while there is a need for further research, our initial findings support the conclusion that Black taxpayers may be audited at higher rates than would be expected given their share of the population. Now, this is what the commissioner wrote in a letter to Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, the Democratic chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. The research found, folks, that Black taxpayers were 3 to 5 times more likely than taxpayers who are not Black to be audited. It noted that the IRS disproportionately flagged tax returns with potential errors in the claiming of certain credits, like the Earned Income Tax Credit, which supplements low-income workers' incomes in an effort to alleviate poverty. The IRS does not collect information about race as part of the tax filing process, and Mr. Werfel did not say whether he believed that should change. What? Here it is, folks. Yep, this is from The Root. But this is a conversation and a story that's been widespread, and I want to bring Corinna back into the frame. Corinna, are you surprised?
Nope. Hell no.
Hell to the no.
No. I'm just glad that they actually admitted it. Now that is the part that I'm surprised about.
Yeah, that gives you one of them rock eyebrows, like.
Yeah, like, oh.
You really admitted to it. I'm not surprised, Corinna. I'm really not surprised.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised, man.
I actually know some folks who have been targeted, and what I mean by targeted is just like all of a sudden, especially I want to say like after like the height of the pandemic, and you know a lot of folks were like on pandemic unemployment assistance. I'm the same cliche. I was one of them, and just suddenly out of nowhere they get an IRS notice, and they're like, "Oh, you owe from like 2009." We're like in the next century, like, why all of a sudden? So it just seems so common thread. And like, just given the history and our experiences, you can't help but think that, yeah, we're a target. I feel like personally, Black people are under attack in America right now, especially we're the go-to for any problems, concerns. And it seems like the white people, but they said it right there in the article, right, Farajii? Like, yeah, they're just,
well, that's what I'm saying. Now, here's the part about it. Like I mentioned, Mr. Werfel, the IRS commissioner, said that this is happening. Well, he used the term maybe, like upon further research. Let me go back to the exact quote that he said. Our initial findings support the conclusion that Black taxpayers, may be audited at higher rates. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Come on, Mr. Werfel. Come on, man. Come on, sir.
Maybe
you are.
Yes, to me.
You are. Yeah, maybe leaves a little door, a little opening of that may not be the truth. No, it is the truth. It is the truth. Now, here's the other thing. Senator Elizabeth Warren went on record to say that the IRS should start collecting some type of demographic information because they don't collect information about race when they look at it. But the algorithms but the algorithms that they use to process everything seems to be. I mean, if your name, and I mean, look, let's keep it real. This is the culture. If your name is Shakisha,
okay. More than likely,
you're a Black woman.
Okay. That's right.
So that means that you are going to be kind of targeted. You know what I'm saying? Now, Tiana checked in. Tiana, you made a great point. You said you're not surprised about this, but the bigger question is, what the hell are they going to do about it? And that's the question. What is the IRS going to do? Now, I think getting back to what Senator Warren said, she said that there should be some collection, some type of determination that the race of taxpayers, so that way people can start, when they start processing that, they can start to, look at that data a little bit more closely instead of leaving it kind of unspecified, even though they know that this is happening. So I'm wondering if we should include some race component in it. Do you think that would be helpful?
I mean, I feel like, okay, let's say we did include some sort of racial component, right? What's the end goal? How are we going to use that? How is that data going to be used? Are we going to, take a deep dive and really analyze it to see and make sure that, Black folks aren't the go-to when it comes to the IRS for matters like this? So it's like, I'd like to hear more from Senator Warren, like, what is the plan once you actually collect that data? What are we going to do with it? And will it really make a difference? Because to your point, mentioning the names, it's just realistic. Like, this is the culture. Like, more than likely, if your name is, like you said, what you say the name was?
Shakisha.
Yeah, like, oh, Shakisha. They're not going to be like, yeah. I mean, you're going to automatically presume, like, she's a Black woman.
It's
like, what are we going to do with it? But what are we going to do with it once we have it?
Absolutely. I'll make sure I'm saying Kelvin Barnett. Kelvin, thank you for checking in. You say, I feel a class action lawsuit is coming. Yeah. Because I'm thinking about the hundreds of thousands of people, maybe a couple of million Black folks that may have been audited in with discrimination that have had to pay. My question is, along with that, Kelvin, is that a class action lawsuit, should we expect a higher return? Should we get some money back?
And they come for the people who are behind the scenes, right? Not to bring up Tangerine Tyrant, but like, unfortunately, he was our president at some point, probably one of the biggest tax evaders on a public forum, and he just kept getting away with it, kept getting away with it, kept getting away with it. Something else just to bring in, and I'm not sure exactly what's happening with that case. I was reading, like, I think a week or two ago, Beyonce filed something against the IRS, fighting something they say that she's owing, you know, some millions of dollars. So she's disputing that right now.
Really?
So yeah. So I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, some people don't think that you can file against the IRS. I don't think, you know, a real Brooklyn checked in and said, look, you have a better chance of seeing a Brontosaurus walking down Madison Avenue than it is than it is to do something that affects the IRS. Some people, but here's why I think that we may see some movement on getting some type of tax justice. Let's call it that. Because every institution in America is slowly falling apart because of its relationship to Black people. Every institution, every industry is feeling it's not as strong as it used to be, because now more and more people are waking up and more information is being exposed that a lot of these industries, or pretty much all of these industries, have been built on the discrimination, the disrespect, and the overall diminishment of Black people in this country.
Absolutely.
Every industry is affected. Let me go to my guy. Let me hear something. Who else? Oh, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you said algorithms are used against Black people in various areas such as employment. The algorithm, if we're looking at algorithms, and algorithms are various codes that essentially are coming out of the mind of men and women, predominantly white men and women. Yeah. Everybody's going to be affected. So if we start to go against the IRS, which some people believe is the you know, the big house on the top of the hill, I'm not necessarily thinking that the IRS is that ironclad from criticism or from change, because remember the Supreme Court? Look at the Supreme Court. Look at how the views and the attitudes of the Supreme Court has changed over these past 30 years because of what we're starting to see more and more of behind the scenes. And so if we start to look at these institutions, and this is why I think there are so many people, as we take our next pause, but this is why I think there are some people who are afraid to even go deep into the race relations question in this country, is because if you start to go deeper into race, Corinna, then you're starting to uproot industries that have made money off of its disdain and its racism against Black folks. And that's a problem for America.
Everyone's dirty laundry is going to be for all to see.
Right. That's a huge problem. You start talking about this industry, that industry, I mean, the IRS, the people that's responsible for the revenue of the country, and now you're saying that, do you know that as we're having a conversation about reparations and racial reckoning and justice,
oh my God,
what does that mean for the IRS? Look, I just want y'all to marinate over this. I gotta take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's get more thoughts from you as our culture crew member, from you as our culture crew, from Corinna, and a whole lot more as we talk about this latest revelation of the IRS admitting, folks, they have been auditing Black taxpayers at a higher rate than white taxpayers. Which do you think should be done? Stay with me. The conversation continues right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about the IRS admitting this week that they have been auditing black taxpayers at a higher rate than white taxpayers. Now, I'm asking the question, are you surprised? Many of us are not surprised because we know that the institutions of this country has a very, very dysfunctional relationship to black constituents. But I want to continue this conversation just for a few minutes, and I want to bring my sister Corinna Denise back into the discussion here. Because, Corinna, as I was thinking over this break, everything that happens in the dark, the level of injustice that we've been seeing happening in the dark is now coming to light. People have been thinking that there has not been any type of real reckoning in this country. And I'm not talking about what the stuff we saw with police brutality. The real reckoning that this country is so afraid of is the reckoning that comes from knowing the truth. America hates the truth. And I'm sorry, folks, we just got to keep it 1,000% here. Not just 100, 1,000.
We're unapologetic. I don't think
that is the truth. I'm telling you, unapologetic. But the fact is that this country hates the truth and will do anything and has done anything to keep certain things in the dark. Now, with that being said, Corinna, look at the situation that we're finding ourselves in. If this is like that Alice in Wonderland hole. How far back do you go? How far back has this level of auditing happened? Because if the IRS has said, well, yes, we have been auditing Black taxpayers, does that mean that we need to keep paying taxes moving forward? Because I'm interested. Does that mean that we get some sort of tax break if you are a Black business owner or a family? Like, what does that mean? Like, I'm not talking about we're going to just change the algorithms.
No. Something that's really substantive.
Come on, sis. I mean, come on.
But you know what?
People have been paying taxes. And look, remember back in the day, and I'm not saying that this is still not the same attitude. But very quickly, Corinna, I'm going to get your thoughts. But remember back in the day, people there's only two things that are certain in life in America: death and taxes.
Yeah.
So
and as a
we know death
person,
is
they
certain.
take out a lot of taxes and give very little of it back. Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to put that in there.
Just think about this. Like, just think about this situation. Let me just throw it out there because I saw a great comment. Valerie Victoria AG. Valerie, you said something I thought you're right on. You're dead on. You said it may be a huge problem, but if they don't reconcile it, the country is not going to survive it. Valerie Victoria AG, my sister. You're hitting that nail right on the head, sis. That's the point that we at in this country. Because a lot of us, man, look, let me tell y'all, a lot of us tend to believe that this stuff that we experiencing, and Corinna, you talk about it, this attack against our Blackness, our humanity, all of this stuff is not going to be addressed. And I'm saying that this stuff is coming up. This stuff is going to be addressed because the country cannot continue to try to diminish the voice and the pain of a people that are screaming out for justice, that are screaming out for liberation, that are screaming out for a sense of humanity. How long do you think this country is going to last or stand if we don't address this race problem in this country? How long do you think that's going to happen?
It's just a matter of time, Farajii. And something that comes to mind too is, given the current temperature in the country, right, where we see things, it's normal that, a governor, a racist ass governor, can go on social media and give his sentiments and almost his sympathies and condolences, right, for Daniel Penny, and they fundraise for him. That's so normalized. Like, the racism has become so blatant now. It just makes me wonder, like, the question comes up in my head, why now would the IRS, feel comfortable to admit what they admit about, auditing Black taxpayers at a higher rate than white people? Why now?
Well, it may be because
the comfort of knowing that, nothing's going to be resolved about it right away. Why is this okay? Like, I can't imagine, like, I would think you have to have some level of comfortability to just say, yeah, we definitely audit Black taxpayers at a high rate. Yeah, that's true. With it's like almost like it's nothing. It's almost as if they expect that nothing's going to follow up. And I think that's where we have to be responsible.
Yeah.
To remember this and be pissed off about it, right? And not to forget, because we're moving constantly. Things are happening in our lives. And I think sometimes we have a short-term memory, sometimes unintentionally. We need to remember these things. Yeah. And why is this happening? There's so many pieces that we need of the puzzle we need to put together to have true liberation, right? This probably alludes to some of the conversations and discussions about reparations too. I mean, this is it's just unbelievable that it's just too comfortable for me to just admit that.
Well, you know what? It may not just be, and I mean, I can definitely understand you saying that, but it may not be a fact of comfortability. Maybe it comes from a space of desperation, where they're like, and he could downplay it in his words, but maybe the evidence is just so overwhelming that it's like, how can you not say something, right? I mean, there are Black folks in every industry in this country. There are Black folks in the financial industry, in the tax industry, and all of these things, right? Black people, we're everywhere. We're not as representative as we need to be, but there's somebody in the space. So my point is, it just might just be a simple thing like, you can keep going down this line saying, you know what? We're going to keep this close to us. We're not going to say anything. Or to Valerie, to Valerie Victoria AG's point, like if you don't deal with it, this is going to create a huge problem down the road, right? And that's the space I think that we find ourselves in. Like, it's the evidence is so overwhelming of the level of racism and systemic racism that we have in this country that even white people are going to have to admit that's racist.
It seems like too, Farajii, as much as, like you said, America doesn't want to admit the truth, they don't want to face the truth, as much as what has been covered up for so long, right? It's like they're desperately trying to cover it up, but it's just constantly falling apart, right? Drastically, especially if we look at like the past 3 years after the pandemic, right? Like I think the murder of George Floyd was like the epitome of that, right? And it's like where everyone was at home, where everyone was kind of just still and then really had a chance to pay attention. So now their attention is a little bit more heightened, right? They're a little bit more aware of things and seeing all these things that are happening even now. And it's like piece by piece, even though they're trying to ban books, they're trying to do this and that, they're trying to take away history, it's falling apart. You know, even something like this article today that speaks to like, you can't, omit the racism. It's obviously racism. Like, what else would it be? Because again, even though race isn't included, right? Or as far as what a taxpayer, how they're identified, definitely with the name. We're going back to that cultural point, right? Like it's kind of obvious. So how do you explain that? You can't omit that. There's just no way that you can. How?
So then it gets to the point, and I know we got to take another pause. But I know, so then it gets to the point at looking at the economic system, because the taxes, the IRS determines so much of what goes on with our economic systems, right?
Yes.
So then it starts to look at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like it starts to look at, I mean, there's just, and I'm just thinking there are so many broad, wide-ranging, the potential of impact, right? And again, the IRS can't just come back to Black folks. You can't make such an admission like this. If they come back to Black folks and say, yeah, we changed the algorithm, we'll just do better the next tax season.
Mm-hmm. I expect to hear something like that soon. It's not enough, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the follow-up, right?
I get that, but see, here's the problem. Here's the problem with that, right? The problem becomes that now that we know this, and I brought up the reparations piece for real, because this should be a part of the reparations overall agenda. If it's not a part of the federal conversation, it should be part of the state conversation, right? Especially when you have Black folks. And they may find that the situation is Black folks were audited in certain states higher than in other states. We don't know, right? And if that becomes the case, then that should be a part of it. I don't think that we should take that off the table. I think that there should be a some type of element, and we just all brainstorming here, folks. But there should be some type of element to say, well, what is the real justice? What is fair?
Right.
What is considered fair in light of this new information? Should we not pay taxes for the next 3 to 5 years until the IRS gets itself together? I'm serious. I mean, I'm thinking bold, Corinna, because here's the thing. We've been dealing with, what's the word I'm looking for, y'all? We've been dealing with these like slow, incremental forms of progress and gains, right? Like, I'm tired of slow incremental. I want stuff to be so swift in some cases, so bold in other cases, that it is like, it makes your head spin. You like, damn.
Yes.
But I do know that because these systems are so entrenched in our demise, you can't make swift changes without totally disrupting and uprooting the foundation for a lot of other things. So there has to be a bold enough step that the IRS is planning to take without disrupting the quality of life of Black people in this country. They should make sure that, how do we make sure that the IRS don't go on a war path and start to penalize Black folks, Black homeowners, Black business owners? You see what I'm saying? Like, maybe, and I hope I'm not just overthinking here, but I'm just saying that it's too much, man. It's too much.
Yeah. And for one, I definitely want to make sure that I'm educating myself. And I think it's something we all need to do to see, like, what's the role that our legislators play into this, right? How much say do they have with IRS regulations? Like you said earlier, Farajii, Senator Elizabeth Warren is suggesting that, race should be included. But I would need to know, which I don't know, but I'm definitely going to find out, what kind of role do they play? How much of a say do they have? These are things that we need to know so we understand the operation, so that when something happens, we can react accordingly, right? Because, what is there going to be their accountability for us to get, to be basically, I guess, redeemed in a sense.
Right.
It's happening to us particularly all the time. And what's really happening at the IRS, where's the intentionality in that? Like, how are you sorting out the folks that you're actually going after? Like, I would love to dissect this a little bit more to see how they're actually doing it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a huge culture convo that we're going to continue to have. Folks, we're going to take a quick pause. If you have looked at our ticker, you might have just seen that it's breaking news that legendary football player and activist Jim Brown has passed away at the age of 87. We're starting to see more and more of our great ones who have transitioned into becoming the ancestors. So first and foremost, our heart prayers and condolences goes out to the family of Jim Brown. He has had an extraordinary life on the field and off the field. And of course, you can stay tuned to us here on the Black Star Network as we do our part to lift Brother Jim Brown and talk about his politics and the impact that he has made. So again, legendary football player and activist, Brother Jim Brown has passed away at the age of 87. And
now
stay tuned to Black Star. Said it, yep. He's one of our great ancestors now. And we need that level of toughness in dealing with some of these issues today. All right, folks, let's take a quick pause. When we come forward, another big cultural conversation talking about the funding of Black organizations by white philanthropists. I'm asking the question, folks, should we be ashamed that we still find that there are hundreds of Black organizations that are working on behalf of our people that are not supported by the people? We'll have that discussion, and later on we'll check in and talk about what Princeton is doing to try to turn the tide on its racist past as well. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Wanted to switch gears from talking about the IRS to talking about the state of Black nonprofits. And there was a big announcement that was just made yesterday that came out of the Ballmer Group, which is the group and the philanthropic arm of former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer and his wife Connie, where they both have announced that they will provide $42.5 million over the next 5 years to support more than 100 Black-led nonprofit organizations focused on improving economic mobility. Isn't that something? We talk about the IRS, and then we're talking about economic mobility for Black folks from Black-led nonprofit organizations. Take a look at this, folks. I want to throw this first quote up there on the screen there, Keenan. This effort that was announced yesterday, and I'm looking at the second paragraph, folks. The effort announced yesterday aims to help close the funding gap for early and mid-stage Black-led nonprofits whose unrestricted assets are 76% smaller than their white counterparts' assets. The 110 Black-led organizations chosen will also receive advising from the philanthropy ventures Echoing Green and New Profit, both of which invest and help expand nonprofits that are just getting started. Now, Echoing Green is an organization that I'm very familiar with. Back in 2006, I was blessed to be a fellow of Echoing Green, where they gave me some funds to do the work that we did back in Baltimore around the youth empowerment movement. And so to see them, to watch how they're one of the organizations out there that are trying to provide resources for Black-led nonprofits, but also to look at the trends, to look at the landscape for this level of funding. But for $42.5 million over the next 5 years, going to 110 Black-led nonprofits, just to keep these nonprofits afloat, folks. This is the thing. That money is to keep these nonprofits afloat. I want to bring Corinna back into the discussion. Corinna, we're seeing Black foundations, Black organizations being supported by white money. That's why I'm asking the question, A. Keenan. We should put up there on that on the screen something. Should we be ashamed?
No.
Should we be ashamed?
I don't think so.
Should we be supporting our own nonprofit organizations, our own Black-led nonprofit organizations? Or should this be the model?
Well,
go ahead, Corinne. I'm giving you the space, sis. I'm giving you the time and the space.
I mean, but here's the thing, right? Some of that white money, why do they have it? Because we're buying their products, we're helping them to accumulate the wealth, right?
Right.
So I think in turn, like we're pouring into them, they should also pour into us.
So as far as
well, here's the thing too, right? I don't know if this is going to sound a little petty, but it's the Ballmer Group, right? Who's helping to provide like these grants and whatnot. The former CEO of Microsoft. I mean, I could bet a lot of us right now have Microsoft Office on our computers. We use it on a daily basis. You got to buy it. You got to renew the subscription. We're using it. So, and something too, when I was looking at the Ballmer Group earlier today, I was surprised to see on their team, like their staff, a lot of people of color, a lot of Black folks, Latino. So that was surprising, even though, white couple who are the Ballmers who created the organization. So it kind of made me interested to find out, what's the motivation for them wanting to take the initiative to pour back into specifically
I think that's an excellent question. I think that's an excellent question because that's the exact same question I have. I think that's an excellent question. Y'all remember, and I'm sure you remember this, Corinna, when maybe it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, the ex-wife of Amazon founder
Jeff Bezos.
Mm-hmm. His ex-wife. And I forgot the woman's name at this point. It just was on the tip of my tongue. And crew, y'all let me know. how she went on a spree. I'm going to say this, like a funding spree. Mackenzie, that's who her name, Mackenzie. Mackenzie went on a funding spree where she originally took all of the money that she had pretty much gotten from her ex-husband as part of, her ex-husband, and just started to give it away. Now, one thing that she did that was completely like unconventional was that she literally gave money away to groups, nonprofit organizations, and schools and other institutions with no strings attached.
Yeah, I remember that.
No strings attached. I remember she gave it to a number of HBCUs, no strings attached. She gave to nonprofit organizations that have a budget of $1 million or more, no strings attached. So we see that level of philanthropy, right? And I'm always asking the question, and I think she came into the space knowing that there were going to be questions about her intentions, her motives. And so she said, look, I am just giving this money away. Like I'm good for the rest of my life. I need y'all to make this world a better place. So she gave that money away. Same thing here. I think that there is something about this. I think that it's a good thing because these organizations need it. I want to share with y'all very quickly just some of the numbers around this. Keena, let's go to quote number 2 around this issue. I want y'all to take a look at this. This came from NBC News. When you're talking about the money and how money, this came from back in 2020, 2021, after the summer of protests around George Floyd. But back then it was noted that Black people give 25% more of their incomes away to philanthropic initiatives than white people do, according to a 2012 study from the W.K. Rockefeller Foundation and Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. But Black-led organizations remain underfunded compared to organizations led by white people, according to a report published that year by Echoing Green and Bridgespan. It found that the revenues of Black-led organizations are, on average, 24% smaller than those of their white-led counterparts, and organizations led by Black women consistently receive less funding than those led by Black men or white women, the study found. According to Christina Lewis of Give Black, she said there's a huge problem in philanthropy. We call it the giving gap. She said a significant cause of the giving gap, according to Ellis Smith, is the endurance of wealth disparities that disproportionately affect Black Americans and stretch back to slavery, which prevented millions of enslaved people and their descendants from building generational wealth. Other barriers for Black-led organizations seeking funding from foundations include being locked out of social networks, in part because of racism and interpersonal biases that facilitate connections to the philanthropic community, as well as funders' biases toward white-led organizations, according to the study by Echoing Green and Bridgespan. So we're seeing that there are all of these barriers, but the one thing that I think that we should key in on is the things that we have control over is, and this is why I'm bringing up the question again, should we be ashamed? Do we put enough money back into the organizations that we say that we love?
I think that come up a lot too, especially with our HBCUs, particularly, where a lot of alumni aren't contributing as much. And why is that, right? Is it that they have and they simply are not contributing, or is there, a deterrent or something that's hindering them being able to give as much as they would like? But yeah, I mean, I guess we have to start somewhere. But yeah, I definitely wholeheartedly believe that if we should be pouring into our organizations, right? But I think there are a lot of other factors that could be hindering why we aren't as much. But I don't know if that necessarily leads to us being ashamed.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't know if that necessarily correlates with us being ashamed to accept it from someone who's willing, to take the initiative to give it back, especially as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we kind of pour into them by being consumers, buying their products, utilizing their things, right? So it's kind of like a little bit pouring back into us. You know, I
Right.
think, you know, we hear Roland talk about that all the time when it comes to Black-owned media, how we're buying products. You know, why shouldn't they be giving Black-owned media those advertising dollars? It's like a return on investment. Like, you wouldn't have the wealth that you have. Like Jeff Bezos, like I order from Amazon, I'm sure you do. A lot of us on here, he wouldn't have the wealth that he has if we weren't ordering, especially like in the height of the pandemic. You know, when you couldn't get out, everyone was hitting that that order button. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a return on investment, because at the same time, yeah, we could feel a way like, should we take their money per se? But then what's going to be the end goal? Like, is it going to be more of a disadvantage? Like, we could stand in our protest per se and not accept it, but then how is that going to help us in the long run? Because at the end of the day, you don't accept the money specifically for this cause to help our organizations, but in turn, you're still going and supporting them by purchasing their products. So
right. Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want us to continue the conversation about this, Corinna, because I think the other part of it, and I'm going to share with y'all my personal experience of where we are with this, because I've experienced this from the nonprofit space, and I've experienced this, of course, in the Black media space. And I'm not even talking about on this platform. So I think there's a cultural change that needs to happen for us to understand that if we want to see certain things, if we want to enjoy the benefits of having these conversations, we're going to have to put some money up, folks.
Yeah.
We're going to have to put some money up. Folks, stay with us. The discussion will continue. Love to get your thoughts as you share on our YouTube page, as we're streaming right now. We're also streaming on Black Star Network and on Amazon News. And stay with me. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about this latest announcement that comes from the Balmer Group about their investing $40 million plus into Black-led nonprofit organizations over the next 5 years. And you're talking about this $42 million investment to 110 Black-led nonprofit organizations. Now, we've been talking about just the landscape, folks, the dynamic of funding Black organizations and this idea of white money funding Black organizations. And should we be ashamed that we may not be funding our own organizations as well as we need to be? Talking to my sister, Corinna Denise, who is a college advisor and educator and activist. And of course, I'm talking to you, my online culture crew. Folks, I want you to join us in the discussion. Post your thoughts on YouTube as we're streaming live right now on Black Star Network and of course on Amazon News. So I want to get to this point though, Corinna, because this point touches home for me on a couple of different levels. One is I remember I used to run a nonprofit organization. Me and my ex-partner, we ran this nonprofit organization back in Baltimore for 10 years. And this was from the period of, you're talking about from 1999 all the way up to like 2009, maybe 2010. But one of the big things that we saw, and we were young back then, so, you know, I mean, we were just young organizers, young activists that are trying to do some changes. The conversation about funding Black organizations at that time was just like a distant planet. It was like on Mars or something, right? And especially in the city of Baltimore. But I remember the ongoing challenges that we had to face in just getting people to put something in the pot. Because we were like, look, we're young people that are trying to help other young people do leadership training and get them involved in civic engagement. We need to raise some money. And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot. Now, we often talk about the level of money that we spend in the stores. We say, oh, we got $1 trillion. At that time, it was like $1 billion plus, you know, buying power and all of that. But one of the things that I think we have lost is that we've lost the sense of, if we want to build the community, we have to fund the community.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Like, the community is not going to just pop up and crop up on its own. It takes money. So that was my first experience. Then the second experience is I used to work for a radio station right there at the historic HBCU, Morgan State University in Baltimore. The station's called WEAA. Great station, Black owned, Black managed, Black operated. Each year we would do what they call a funding drive, because it was a public radio station. So we played music, but we also was, at that time, it was a station that was an NPR affiliate. And also it was a station that required you to raise funds to keep the station afloat. Huge struggle. Struggle. Now, here's a Black station. I'm on the station. You got other notable Black voices. We're talking about Black stuff. Black people in Baltimore excited about it. Oh, man, it's great stuff. But when it comes down to the money part, it was like
non-existent.
We will raise money, but not as much as other public radio stations, white public radio stations. Yeah. And I knew that, and I was doing that for years. I'm talking about like 15 years, Coretta. And one of the things I found out is that it's just not in our culture. For some reason, we have lost the historic connection that if you love something, you have to put something in a pot. Just the same way we do the church or any other faith institution. You see what I'm saying? The idea of giving money to a radio station was so foreign to some Black folks. They were like, well, why should I give money to a radio station? Don't y'all already get money? Yes, we do get money, but it's a public radio. White public radio stations do the same thing, but Black public radio stations definitely struggle with this, right? Same thing now. We're in this space. You're on this platform. And it's like, yes, we're doing it. We're providing a service. And I don't know if that is part of the reason, if people don't make the connection that as much as this is about entertaining, it's also about public welfare, providing a service to the community, that might be the missing part of the culture to say, you know what, I love this station, I love what this situation is doing, or I love this organization and the work that they're doing, let me put something in the bucket. Matter of fact, I'm not going to just do it one time, I'm going to do it continuously to help to sustain. And it doesn't require a lot.
No, it doesn't.
We're not talking about, you putting up $1,000, but if you say, okay, let me give $50 a month or $10, $50 a month, that's gas money.
Yeah.
That's gas money. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just talking about the cultural point of that's not a part of our culture as it was, say, 40, 50, 60 years ago. What's your take?
I mean, I think a lot of things have changed, right? I think there's a lot of ignorance. Again, not saying ignorant to insult, but what does it mean to be ignorant? Like not knowing. How many of us realize that it does take this funding? Like, I think maybe some people probably presume that it's just there, right? I'm going to give a little grace here. Do they recognize that this is, these platforms you can contribute to, just like we do here on Black Star Network? Everyone gives their piece to keep this thing going. So do people know? And the importance and the significance of it, right? Like the media, especially when it's Black owned, where we're controlling the narrative of our stories, our culture, right? It's a different take, but it does take money. And I'll just allude to, that's one of the reasons why I really appreciate Roland's transparency, right? Showing us, where our dollars are going as contributors to Black Star. It's given me personally a greater understanding of how everything works as far as like media is concerned, and like all the things that we see on the back end that we don't see, necessarily in the public eye. And I think if a lot of us were more aware of that, then maybe people would be more willing to give. But how often are people kind of brought in that way? And I'm not necessarily saying you have to be full on transparent, but just, to educate the audience of the importance. Like, look, like, yes, there are some funds that we do receive, but we could do so much more if our audience, right? Like, we want to keep providing you with great things, great stories, resources, and being able to travel and cover certain things, but it requires money. And I think that if people have a greater understanding of that, they'll be more willing to give. Now, there are some folks who are just like, I'm not giving to that, right? You're always going to have those folks. But I do want to give some grace here, because I know, and I'm just tying this in a little bit personally, I have myself learned a lot of, how this thing works, and, why it requires the funds, why is Roland asking us? Because Black-owned media is locked out of so many of the other dollars. But then again, too, if we want great coverage, great stories, and footage, it does take money and resources. Like, it doesn't just happen. And if we want to keep it going, then we have to pour in to this thing, right? So that we can keep getting great news stories, keep getting great programs and coverage.
Can I throw something else in the mix there, Corinna?
Yeah, of course.
Can we also speak about the cultural fact that we don't trust Black folks to handle money?
So why don't we trust Black folks?
Why don't we trust Black folks? We don't trust Black folks to handle money. We don't trust them. The organization could be doing great. And this is why the situation around Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter grassroots lawsuit, because it adds to the confirmation bias that some of us have about Black people handling Black money. It adds to the fact that, you know what? See, that's why you can't give to Black organizations, because they gonna F up the money. You see what I'm saying? Y'all remember this? Back in 1995, we had the Great Million Man March, right? 2 million brothers showed up on the mall that day. We each held $1 or whatever was in our pocket at that time. I was 16. I held up the $1. My father and my brother, we all held up the $1. The money was collected, Do you know that march was audited by a number of professional auditors? Every dime was accounted for. Do you know, even to this day, Corinna, Black men that I've talked to and some Black women have said, man, look, the march was all good, but what happened to the money? We don't trust Black people to handle our money. We don't trust each other. And I think that's the problem. And this was back in 1995.
That's a great point, Farajii.
So you imagine in 2023, 2022, 2021, we don't trust each other with the money. And I think that's part of the reason why. Yes, it could be because of the pandemic. I think that certainly played into it. I don't think that, a lot of us, we want to give, right? But because culturally we don't know what that looks like, what does that mean? We might feel like it's a burden to give. But I think underneath of it all, we do not trust each other to handle our money.
And there are many experiences, right, why we don't have that trust, right? Trust has to be earned. So
right.
Like to your point with the march, it's like, where was the data? Where were the numbers? And I'm raising the questions because I don't know, to see where does that money go.
But here's the question. We put that level of scrutiny on ourselves, but we don't do it to white organizations or white institutions.
I was thinking that.
No, and let's keep it real. You go to a situation, you know what I'm saying? And any organization, I'm not going to name one, but just any organization, they might ask you, hey, for $1 a day, you can just give to this or give to that. And some of us have the heart, because that's the way we are. We have the heart to give. But we don't jam up that organization, that institution, and say, okay, I gave $40, and then this is how it be, right? And I'm not saying that this is this is crazy, but we might give one time $50, and we be like, well, where's the report to show my $50 was taken?
That's true. Wow, Farajii, that's deep. That's very true. I have seen this happen. Yeah, where it's like we're hesitant to give to our own, but we will pour in and put so much trust, right? In a way, I'm going to kind of just relate this a little bit. As a college counselor, I've often struggled in spaces I've worked in, where I've had colleagues say, like, oh, why go to a Howard when you can go to a Duke? Excuse me? Where I've had to basically coach my students and remind them, like, there was a time when there was no other choice. And don't forget the great people who came out of a Howard that could dismantle, who were so brilliant, they killed Jim Crow, right?
Right.
So that we could have some of the things that we have now. But, what has happened to us, as a people, is it just all this indoctrination and things like that, and the systemic racism? It runs so deep that we have cultivated this idea that someone other than our own is better, and I think I'm just tying that into your point where we will question, we'll be hesitant to give to our own, but another organization, not so much. We're not going to do the follow-up per se to be like, where are my dollars going? What has happened to us? Why we feel so trusting to be able to do that with someone else, but not our own? And wow, when you frame it that way, it's really sad. And we need to find a way to get back to that. Have we just not been as transparent? And you know what, too? Some of them are biggest dealers, right? Like this, because they can. I think sometimes we like too much of the rhetoric and the optics, and we're not looking at the stuff underneath. We're not checking in that. We're just kind of trusting things on the surface level. And I think we have to dig a little bit deeper, because it could be all good. It could look great, but that doesn't mean it's truly great on the inside. And who you're actually trusting and giving with no hesitation, they could be stealing and using that for other purposes, right? We see that right now with GoFundMe. Everyone will just throw up a GoFundMe these days. It's like, oh, right. I need this and that, and collect and say, I need it for, like, I don't know, I'm raising money for children here. And then lo and behold, next thing you know, they got a brand new ride, whatever the case may be. But why is it that we're so trusting to give to other people and not just ourselves? And I think a lot of that ties into our history, unfortunately. And I think there's a lot for us to unlearn, so much more to learn. And the only way that we're going to thrive is to get back to giving to our own, but then that requires accountability and I think transparency, so that we can build that trust, because it takes a long time to build trust and it takes a second to, like, destroy it. But
I totally understand this. We got to take our next pause, but I totally understand this. And David, you said, oh, Farajii, sounds like you've been jaded. Well, yeah, I am a little jaded, because people take time out of their schedule. People, like, for example, whether you're talking about in the media space, like Black media professionals, we do this as a labor of love, for example, right? We don't do it because of the big dollars. You don't get huge, major dollars working for Black media. I'm gonna just let y'all know. Y'all might be like, man, you must be. No, it's not like that, because it's a different source. It's a different thing. If you see Black media professionals, and I'm using media as an example here, you see Black media professionals, that means that we want to be there. Not because we just have to be there, we want to be there. Think about all of your great Black media voices, right? From the past up to this present moment, we want to be there. Brother Roland talks about it often. Talk about his experience. He could have been on CNN. They was going to give him the bag at MSNBC, but he decided to go on his own to start something with this Black Star Network and to create his own platform. He took a hit, but because that's the labor of love, because we want to be here. Same thing for the nonprofit organizations. Yes, you can take that same type of spirit and energy and talent and skill to white spaces and make their reality greater. But because you have a love and affinity for your people and you want to see your people thrive, you decide it. Look, I'm gonna try to, you know, thug it out in creating a space for Black folks, right? We want to be there.
Yeah. Like teachers.
So it's not that the desire is not there. It's just that there's some other things, and I think that, again, going back to it could be the economics of the situation, but I'm just talking about the culture of giving. We got to reanalyze and reassess our culture of giving. And this is this has been a historic part of our community for years, folks. It's only been disrupted recently, but it's always been a historic part of our community.
And real quick, real quick, we give all the time in a way, right? We give when folks, well, I don't, but you go to Super Bowl, you're watching the NFL, you're buying brand and all that stuff. There's so many ways that we give all the time that I don't think a lot of us are even cognizant of. So the same time I'm going to take to spend X amount of dollars on that high-end designer, I could take a little piece of that and pour it back into something that's more substantive, that's going to actually appreciate with value over time, right? That's going to lead to for the greater good for us as a people. Just saying, you know.
Absolutely. This is the way it is. This is just the way we are right now. And we have been, very quickly, that part of our humanity, that part of our love has been disrupted and distorted because of capitalism, because of this idea of individualism, because of the culture that we live in. We don't see the immense value of investing in something outside of ourselves. And that's a great concern that we should have. I'm not mad at a Black organization is seeking funding from white people. I agree with you. We owe that. That's the least that you can do. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we should let our foot up off the gas and not supporting those organizations as well. Just put it in your line item. And again, it's not a lot. If you can put a little something for Black Star, for your favorite nonprofit, for the church, for the mosque, whatever you were part of, whatever good cause that you believe should be sustained, you should give something. And this is for all of us. You know what I'm saying? HBCU, all alumni. We throw up our hands, and the numbers will show it. And I'm sure you've seen the numbers, Corinna, very quickly. We can talk about, I'm from Howard, I'm from this one, I'm from that one.
How much do you give?
How much do you actually give? Because you can't run a school off of no damn football game tickets.
That's right.
You can't run a school off of no step show.
Right. Takes money, takes resources.
Look, it'd be better for you to give some money than showing up at the step show, at the big game, at the alumni mixer. Give some money.
So go to homecoming, but don't forget to give back. Like,
give something.
Yes.
Like Denzel said in that meme, he said, "I'm walking away with something."
Something.
I'm walking away with something. Look, we gotta take a quick pause. Stay with us, folks. More conversation here on the Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Final conversation. We're going to go head up to the state of New Jersey. New Jersey, my sister Corinna, she checking in. Corinna, I'm going to make sure, I don't want to assume, New York City is your hometown.
Miami is my hometown, but I was in New York for 7 years. So it's in me, it's not leaving.
All right, but you just got this love for NYC like no other.
I do. I'm a naturalized New York. I'm telling you, once it's in you, it doesn't leave.
I get it. I get it. All right, so let's talk about Princeton and something that you are super passionate about, which is education. Very quickly, Princeton has decided to name its new dorms after a Black and Latino couple because of their great donation of $20 million. This happened on May the 5th. That's a great day, I have to say, Corinna. Anyway, May the 5th. The Ivy League institution, they hosted a dedication and ribbon cutting of the Residence Hall named after Sister Kwanzaa Jones and Jose E. Feliciano. Jones and Feliciano are both life and business partners. They graduated from Princeton in 1993 and 1994, respectively. And in Princeton's 275-year history, these are the first buildings named after Black and Latino donors. Now, during the dedication, Princeton's president, Mr. Christopher Eisgruber, said the dorms represent what it means to belong and called Jones and Feliciano two very special members of the Princeton community. Yeah, that's some good stuff there. Now, question is, do we gotta give $20 million to us to feel belonging? Like we belong?
I was kind of thinking that, like low key. I was like,
damn, Princeton.
And
Princeton, y'all gave us $20 million. Welcome to Princeton. These are our wonderful students. Like, come on, dog. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I do know it does take a lot. Like to get a building named after someone, like it's a very long, tedious process. It's not
275 years. Is that long?
I mean, and I'm just saying in general, right? Whether no matter what their nationality, race, or anything is, it is a tedious process from what I've seen. But yeah, I mean,
I'm excited about this because I'm like.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit happy, but then I'm like, Princeton, is this a little bit of
kind of side-eyeing them? Like,
Yeah, like, you and your peoples at Harvard, I don't have the best record when it comes to Black people.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know. Just random thought. I don't know if you read Forever Flotus's book, Becoming, but she talks about this where, she made sure she found her little clique of the Black folk at Princeton because she knew what the circumstances were and what she needed to do and her support group to kind of get through. And she mentions it a lot throughout Becoming. I just thought about that. But yeah, I mean, this is a great thing, no doubt. But I am kind of like, why now? Makes me wonder who else has given to the university. Was there a different amount? I mean, our experience, we can't help but raise these questions. So I'm not going to be apologetic for thinking it. We got it. That it is what it is. And I guess we just need a little clarification. It's not to negate from the importance of them finally naming these dorms. But yeah, these I think they're valid questions, Farajii. I mean, why now? And is this what it takes? Something else too in the article I was reading, how the dorms are, I believe, connected by a bridge. So it's kind of like they're connected in real life. So like literally and figuratively. So that's very nice. And hopefully we'll see more of this because there are a lot of great people of color who have come out of Princeton. So I'm not sure what their process is for deciding who they name buildings after. But yeah, I think this is great. But yeah, I am asking the question. I can't help it. It's been our experience. So I'm not surprised that we're raising it.
Just say back to Davey Floater's point when he said I was jaded. We're a little jaded. I'm a little jaded when it comes to certain things. I know that's the importance of therapy. I'm a little jaded.
I think we've all
when I see like the glossy stuff, I'm like, okay. Now I don't want to take away from the fact that Kwanzaa Jones and Jose both are great people. They both are doing phenomenal work in their interpersonal lives. So I don't want this to throw shade on any one of their accomplishments and achievements that they have made. I'm just looking to your point about the intention. But if this is Princeton's way of turning a page, of trying to say we're going to become more inclusive, we're going to become more belonging, then I hope that this is the beginning of something that's going to, eventually last. We got a couple of moments left, but I want to get a couple of thoughts from our crew here.
What's the crew saying?
The crew is saying a lot. Lori said that money should have been, Lori Parks, you said that money should have been donated to an HBCU. If I was a millionaire, that's what I would have done.
Well, yeah, but
they went to Princeton though.
Yeah, and we don't know if they have. Maybe they have donated to other HBCUs. We might not be privy to that. Just saying, Lori, but I hear you. Yeah,
I hear you. You give $20 million to an HBCU, they're gonna name the whole school after you.
You're gonna get a whole college.
I'd be like the Corinna University. You'd be like, damn, I just wanted the building. You probably get a menu item on the lunch during lunch as well. Would you like to have that? Yeah.
Okay. The dog ching ching.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Let me see here. Neville Tuick, you said it's black people style. My friend always want the best in forensics. All what you're saying is true. My country is the same. Black people support their own culture. That's the problem. Yeah, I feel you. Black people need to, I think that we need to be present in every single space. So that's the benefit. I think one of the big benefits of them naming this, it's like you codified this stamp, like a black woman and a Latino man were here.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
And something else I want to throw in, can't help it. It's the college counselor in me. I would imagine there's they have certain discretion as to how maybe they like the funds to be used. I would hope to think some of that will be for scholarships, right? Maybe they want to specifically give a Black or Latino student who's going to Princeton, right? A scholarship. Maybe it could even be like maybe something that they majored in at Princeton. So I think those are some of the details we might not be privy to. Because I am an avid supporter of our HBCUs. I do think sometimes our students who are at a lot of these predominantly white institutions kind of fly under the radar sometimes, and we need to make sure we're supporting them as well. So maybe some of that funding that they're giving, they're gonna facilitate that into scholarships specifically for those students.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. We need to spread the love. Like, even if you should not make Black students feel bad for going to a PWI.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, some HBCUs, they just don't have the curriculum, or they might not have the strong enough program versus some PWIs. But again, my thinking is somebody got to blaze the trail. Somebody's got to blaze the trail. So if Princeton's going to name a building, a dormitory after a Black woman and a Latino man, so be it, man. But guess what? They're breaking up the history, and it's only a matter of time that everybody will go to Corinna University.
The Farajii Muhammad.
Right. They probably be like Farajii Muhammad Hall. They'd be like, here's the lunch hall named after Farajii because he's full of Corinna, I appreciate you, sis. Thank you so much for joining me this Friday. Thank you. And God willing, we'll reconnect very, very soon. And thank you, Corinna, for being so good for the culture.
Thank you. Peace, crew. Have a great weekend.
You too. All right, folks, let's go and do it for us. I thank y'all so much. I thank my dynamic production team, Joel, my man King Keenan, my control room, and all of you for tuning in. Make sure y'all do your due diligence. Support us here at Black Star Network. Go to blackstarnetwork.com today to support us financially. Also, make sure you share the content. Also, make sure you download the app for free. Also, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, follow me on social media. You can follow me at The Real Farajii on Instagram, at Farajii on Twitter, and I would love to build and connect with you. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will reconnect on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture. I hope and pray you have a safe and enjoyable weekend, and we'll talk soon for another culture conversation here on The Culture, exclusively only here on the Black Star Network. Have a great day. Peace.